As you know, we are talking about, the role and the design of instructional materials for language curriculum design. We'll continue exploring the role of materials specifically in the language classroom. As you know, we have already talked about, the difference between authentic and created materials and their usefulness for language teaching. We have also talked about textbooks, course books, monitoring, managing materials writing projects, right? Now we'll continue the discussion, and we'll see what sort of roles materials can offer for pedagogical purposes, how they could meet the needs of the learners, or how a course book can meet the needs of the learners, or how a teacher can adapt the existing course book to meet the needs of the learners. So in this regard, we have, you might remember, we talked about Prabhu's argument, an all right argument about, about the roles of materials for language teaching. But now we are seeing the roles from pedagogical point of view, how they actually are used and implemented in the classroom once they have developed or created, right? There are differing viewpoints about the role of instructional materials. One of the points says that they are limited in nature because they tend to overlook the changing needs of the learners. For example, if a course book has already been designed for you, and the main function of the course book is just to enhance the grammatical competence of the language learners, so your language learners might be more interested in some other, for example, just the listening or the speaking element. So that might be unsuitable to them. And in this regard, another viewpoint is that the course books don't, meet the contextual needs of the students. I do remember an incident here. For instance, like one of my colleagues, while I was in the UK, he's from Libya, and he was required. He just narrated the incident to me. He was required to teach language with the use of, some movies and songs. But practically, it turned out to be very difficult for him because his learners were religiously less motivated to have movies in the classroom, and it was due to some cultural constraints. So that's the element that the existing textbook, how they could pose challenges to the teachers. They could become a sort of an impediment for the teachers to implement the syllabus in the classroom. For example, as we have already seen this argument in detail previously, that how teachers are influenced by their beliefs about language teaching, how their pedagogical practice is influenced by their beliefs about language teaching. So their pre-planned materials could be, if they don't match the beliefs of the teachers, they could be a useless activity. All right. The materials, they could, if you got, pre-planned materials, so the argument, one of the arguments, they could de-skill the teachers. I mean, the teachers just become, their roles are just limited to follow certain instructions, and that's it, right? And on the other hand, some argue that, well, commercial textbooks as compared to published textbooks, they are more useful because they motivate the teachers, they offer them flexibility, right? So in order to understand the roles of materials for language teaching, especially in the classroom, we need to be aware of how our teachers, what's their qualification, what's their training level, what's their motivation level and proficiency level. So we could offer them some CPD, continuous professional development programs. And the argument in favor of commercial materials is they create autonomous strategies, since teachers can have some sort of flexibility. So the main concerns which we should be aware of as curriculum planners, what form should these take, right? And how positive outcomes can be provided to teacher and learners. And in order to see the role of materials for language classroom, we need to have a bit open and flexible approach, and we need to be able to see the pros and cons, and especially how materials could meet the needs of the students. I personally would like to stick to being a bit flexible, and if I'm adopting a textbook, so I will, if I need to adapt it, I would, but I'll just keep in mind the changing needs of or the dynamics of the classroom.